Well, hey, everybody, the primaries are over, but we got another election coming up that's very important, especially if you are a resident of Temecula in Southern California. But this has implications all across the nation. As you know, Temecula has been a vanguard in parental rights. And so we've got to talk about that. Also, the vicious attacks that are going on against the conservative board members and the big win that took place just this past week in the courts that have great implications for what's happening for the case for parental rights. I'm Tim Thompson. This is Our Watch. Before we bring on Dr. Komrosky, I want to thank you for joining us. Ask you to like this video, share it out with your friends, your family, your neighbors. Also, head on over to ourwatch.com, subscribe, become one of our watchmen. We'd really appreciate that. But let's get right into it. Dr. Komrosky, you are a man that is under much attack, and we thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're doing incredible work here in the state of California. You are the president of the board for the school board for Temecula Valley Unified School District, and your position on the board is under attack.
Yeah, couldn't stress that enough. So when you want to get involved in your local elections and run for school board or city, if you have certain values, let's say, that are conservative, the attacks will come. So yeah. I wanted to say thank you, but I don't really mean thank you for the attacks. Yeah, I mean, I keep a sense of humor about all this, but it's a real battle. Yeah.
It's a battle, but it's a battle that we're winning.
Yeah,
we really are winning. Talk to us about the win that took place last week.
Yeah, what's that guy who's a comedian when he used to say winning? I mean that
Charlie Sheen, winning.
Yeah, it's going through my mind.
Yeah,
So. It's important to realize, and I'll step back for a second, it's important to realize we have diversity in our district, but what's really important, and these are the core values that Mr. Gonzalez, Mrs. Wiersman, myself ran on, is we are enforcing parental rights, and it's within the confines of the law. We're not doing anything against the law. It's all legal, and we want to put children's innocence and parental rights first. Everything we do operates under that. So we want them to have a safe education and a good education. That's the premise for why we passed the parental rights notification policy and banning CRT our first night. And it's also important for people to know before it's not necessarily banned because you can talk about it, we restricted or prohibited it. But before we did that, we had to figure out, all right, what do we mean by CRT and why is it bad? Well, people have to realize we condemned racism and then brought that in and said CRT is a form of racism. So it was a two-pronged approach. Shout out to Chris Aaron from Paso Robles. Most of it was his language. Shout out to Leandra and their crew, their school board up at Placentia Yorba Linda. So, yes, and it's also important to know that the judge sided with us rationally. Just to look, people of ordinary intelligence could know that this is not vague. One of the things that happened, a declaration that I helped write with Mariah for Advocates for Faith and Freedom. Basically, I walked her through and I said, all right, they have a vagueness charge. And I said, I teach logic and we use these things called precising definitions where you get very specific on something and that reduces vagueness. That's exactly what we have inside the CRT resolution is precising definitions. The judge read that off. So I would just say it's not only a victory for Temecula, it's a victory all across the state, all across the nation for anybody who's thinking about protecting their children's innocence from the small but very vocal minority who wants to indoctrinate your kids. They want to push this on them. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, so you're saying a judge sided with you. Why was this even in front of a judge?
Oh, yes. Good question, Tim. Well, because we got sued right after we swear in. I mean, not too long after, I believe it was May, June, we got visited and warned by Thurman, Superintendent of Public Instruction at the state. I think it's the 8th congressional office up there. Pretty powerful position. He comes to our district and warns us that if we're discriminating against, the black population or the LGBT population, that he would have to take action. We're like, oh, there's the warning. A couple days after he leaves, in fact, it might have been that day, Bonta starts threatening us. And then not too long after, we're sued. And then Governor Newsom's attacking us and personally attacking me on Twitter.
Right.
So the long story short is, if you want to fight for righteousness and do things within the confines of the law and protect children's innocence and parental rights, and you want to, one of the things that we talked about was that when we got voted in, there was a broken system. So we're trying to restore trust that the parents have when they drop their kids off at school. They want to trust what's happening behind the scenes because not everybody can afford private education. So when we get attacked by that, my question is why? We're not doing anything illegal. And that's what basically the judge is saying. That's why it's a huge victory. He's like, anybody with common sense can see this. Now, from what I know, we have a court case ruling in May 23rd, and it's supposed to be case management to where they set the parameters of the trial. But from what I know, it's quite possible there is no trial. It's going to be the judge rules, and that's over. Case is over. And then it might get kicked up to the District Court of Appeals and possibly the Supreme Court. Who knows?
So who is it that actually is suing you?
It's a 4-pronged lawsuit. It is students, teachers, parents, and you ready? The local teachers union, Temecula Valley Educators Association. And it's not just that. It's who stands behind the local teachers union, funded by CTA, NEA. CTA is of course, the state union, one of the largest unions in the world, if not the nation. And then you have NEA. And I would say that, let's just talk about the cliche that people talk about in the past, like the teachers know best. Yeah, maybe they did. But it's not like that anymore because you're not just dealing with teachers, you're dealing with the unions that fund them. So I would say that the most significant part of this is the teachers union is suing us. And this is what I told OAN, and this is very important for the viewers to know. It has become, the teachers union has weaponized the school district against us, against the governing board. It's against the entire board, right? So when they do that, what they're really doing is they're saying, we don't like what you're doing, but we represent the majority of the board. We represent the voices of our community. So if you were to really boil this down, the teachers union is against not only the majority of the board, but against the voices of our community. So now the voices of the community have to realize, hey man, I have a recall election, but it's not just me. We have Madison Minor and Rick Ledsam in Orange County, and we're going to find out if they get recalled today, I believe. So this is a call for action for people to get off the couch and vote, get involved, literally run for positions of local authority, like authority influence, like school board, water council, supervisor, city council, get involved.
Right.
Otherwise, you are going to see, and let me back up for a second. I don't know if people can see, but our borders are being invaded. We have the moral infrastructure of our society rapidly declining. What it calls for is people to get off the couch and actually vote. You either want this or you don't want this. So that's
right.
kind of my synopsis on who's suing us and the ramifications of what that means.
Yeah, I want to break this down to a really small view here. So you guys say we don't want the kids in our district to be judged by the color of their skin. We want them to be judged by the content of their character. Yeah. So we don't want critical race theory here at Temecula. Also, we want parents to be in control. So if a child comes to school and they're going to change their gender at school, we want to make sure the parents are notified that their children are doing that at school. Right?
Yes.
So that's it. That's what you're saying is judge them on the content of their character, make sure parents are involved. The teachers union then turns around and sues you for that. I know this because I know several really good teachers in the Temecula School District. This does not represent the teachers at large. There's a small minority of teachers who want to go against you, but most of them aren't on board with this. So I think this is a call not only to parents in the community to get involved, I think it's a call to the teachers to exit the union. They need to get out of this, stop giving their money over, and stop giving power to these people if it doesn't represent the value of the teachers.
Yeah, and I wanted to go back to because it's important to know not only the teachers union involved in suing us, but Governor Newsom was trying to, the liberal talking point was that he was suing the district and trying to fine us if we didn't, adopt TCI. So what I want to do is set the context way before we adopted the parental rights notification policy. Mr. Gonzalez and Mrs. Wiersma were fighting on the May 16th meeting. It was first put forward by Mr. Gonzalez, Education Code 60002, 3 zeros in there if I added 4. But it talked about the parental involvement over the adoption of curriculum. It wasn't followed. There was a broken system. So we were ensuring that the parents had a voice long before. And then all of a sudden, Newsom comes in and tries to sue us. The thing is, and this is totally absurd, he doesn't realize that Education Code 60210, and I got to read this for the viewers, including instructional materials that have not been adopted by the state. It means that the community elects us. It's possible for us to adopt curriculum that's not even approved by the state. But then he's trying to force this narrative on us like, you're not adopting state-approved curriculum, therefore we're going to sue you. This guy doesn't even know ed code, let alone how to run his own state. So it's just absurd. And this was a talking point to the other two school board members fighting for parental rights long before this. But I want to add something else. If your kid identifies as Fluffy the bunny, your parents are going to know about it in 3 days. This is not, and this is a liberal talking point I want to diffuse right now. I have seen people say transgender policy, gender policy. No, it is parental notification policy. It's a nice Marxist tactic to control the narrative. It's about parents. And I think the small but vocal liberal left want to indoctrinate your students, and they want to force their views on you. And what essentially is going to happen is dividing the parents from the children. It is evil. This reminds me of another thing, and I got to say this, Tim. Ed Code 233.5 emphasizes principles like morality and patriotism. And I said this to OAN as well, and I'll say it here. When we do the Pledge of Allegiance, we talk about indivisible, right? It's a word, it's a term at the very end. And the American people should not be divided. But CRT is a Marxist strategy to divide based upon class, the oppressed class that might be, BIPOC, non-white, and then the oppressor class, white. It's completely Marxist division. So we stand on ed code when we prohibit that. Again, this is common sense.
Yeah. And here you are exercising common sense. You're standing up for the rights of the parents. You are standing up for the innocence of the children. Yeah. Everything that you ran on, the reason the Temecula public voted you in, not by a small margin, you won by a good margin. So the citizens of Temecula want you there, and yet they go after you for this recall. Of course, the March 5th primaries are over, but there's another election coming up in Temecula that matters much, and that is the attempt to recall you from your position. Talk to us about that election that's coming up.
Yeah, and this is the exciting part. I'm excited to reintroduce my values to my community, Trustee Area 4. I represent their voices. Now, I represent all students in our district, absolutely, but it's Trustee Area 4 voters that are going to be figuring out, do you want what I've done in the last year? Do you want somebody who delivers on their promises and says, look, this is what I'm campaigning on, and I've actually, voted on everything, and it's went through. Keep in mind, a shout out, again, I cannot do anything on my own. This is a shout out to Mr. Gonzalez. Bless your heart. I know you're in Texas right now. And Mrs. Wiersma. Us three as a team came together like a perfect unity in the time that our community said, we want change. And so now it comes down to me. Do you want me to be recalled? Do you want a liberal school board? Do you want the sexualization of your youth? And I'm just saying no. So if you don't want that, you want to vote for me. People can reach out to me. What I'd love is to know your gifts and talents. If you want to help me, if you literally want to get off the couch outside of praying, and I love your prayers, visit me at DRK, the number 4, TVUSD.com, or either call me or Milana, my campaign manager. Reach out to us.
So what are the areas you need help in right now?
Let's say walking, advertising, and this is important to know, I believe that the liberal left have awoken a sleeping giant in my area. I actually believe that more people are going to vote to keep me in than I had the first time. I would say spread the word. Everything centers on this one question. How is this helping Trustee Area 4 voters know that they have an election for Joseph on June 4th to keep him? And the number one thing to do is vote no on the recall and tell everybody, your mothers, your brothers, your uncles, your sisters, and your cousins, to get them aware that live in our area. One emphasis that really could be helped is all the wineries. I have most of the wine country in my area. So anybody that goes to the wineries, one of the things that people should know is, of course, I'll continue to defend parental rights. But another thing, a policy that we pass is to get pervasive profanity, obscenity, vulgarity, pornography, and erotica out of our schools. And this comes in a few different ways: supplemental material, curriculum, and library books. We need parents to get involved in that. And one of the things I'll be doing, and that I have been doing, is transparency to the public. We're letting the public know what we do in open session, but also I'm holding the admin of our district accountable. It's accountability. If we have pornographic material in the schools, it has to come out. If it's not coming out, parents, get involved and let us know on open mic. But I'm going to hold people accountable as much as I can. I'm only one voice. That's about it, Tim. They got to pray and get involved.
Right.
Maybe help me knock on doors and get the word out there.
All right. One more time on that website address.
DRK, the number 4, TVUSD.com. And I just want to thank you tremendously for having me on today and giving me the ability to give a shout out. And by the way, thank you all the patriots and the parents out there and your prayers. I really appreciate it. From the bottom of my heart.
Amen. Well, Dr. Komrosky, thank you for all you're doing. We're going to continue to pray for you. And I want to thank everybody that's tuned in online. I want to ask you, go over to his website, make sure that you're donating to his campaign, that you're getting involved. There's so many ways you can help him out. And then also want to thank you for watching this video. Ask you to share this out with your friends, your family, your neighbors. Head on over to ourwatch.com, subscribe, become one of our watchmen. We'd really appreciate that. We'll see you next time right here on Our Watch with Tim Thompson.